Welcome everyone. Today we'll talk about capacity building for NGOs, non-governmental organization that is essentially non-profit organization. And basically, how do we build on capacity or the scope of operations of any NGO per se? Just a brief idea is what the premises of today's presentations would be all about it. So capacity building for non-profit organization, essentially for development. Yes, we are talking about development as far as the society is concerned, the overall implications. Now, how do we go about it? It can be done as in the form of institutions, organizations, NGO capacity framework, organizational capacity, organizational effectiveness, range of capacity building in relation to the development and poverty reduction. Now, what are we trying to do? It is societal upliftment. It's basically improving upon the standards of living for the people in and around the society, probably in the within the premises of the organization where the organization is operating. So that is essentially what we are looking at it. Now, how do we go for this capacity building is what we will be talking around it. So let us understand institutions and organizations one thing at a time. Institutions governs individual and probably collective behavior. They may be a formal legal system, property rights enforcement mechanism. Both informal, custom, traditional norms may operate at different level. Yes, we operate in society which has different principles, different values, different ethos, different cultures altogether. We need to respect them. At the same time, ensure that overall growth of life is much more sustainable and livable. That is the reason why we have to operate on different level, and probably that is where we need to concentrate on different large organization institution referring as a rule of the game. If institution can be defined as a rule of the game, organizations are how we structure ourselves to play these rules under. So institutions are long-term, bigger organization, impactful organization. Probably what they are doing around it is what need to be followed or mimicked by the smaller organization following the rules. So the distinction between institution and organization is like that of a rules and the player. Organization encompasses public, political bodies, economic bodies, social body. Please understand the elements out here. The organization is essentially focused or essentially localized in terms of political bodies, economic bodies, and social bodies. Ultimately, the upliftment or enrichment of the society is what we are all aspiring to be. Institutional and organizational development. People often use institutional when they essentially mean organization, and that is what we look into it. For example, institutional weaknesses when they mean organizational ones, such as a weakness in terms of structures, people, delivery, process, whatever you may do go around it as far as an organization is concerned. Organization reform is important, but the bigger institutional picture, which includes rules, incentive, enforcement mechanism, is important too. Example, without policy reform or pay incentive, anti-corruption programs will be hindered. Now, this is what you need to understand. So, organization reform is very important, very vital. But the initial picture, the big picture, you need to understand is too important too, because without paying incentive, people won't change their behavior. Without anti-corruption programs, you will not be able to remove the anomalies and malfunctionalities of the society per se. Institutional and organizational development. Institution causes poverty can include economic, in terms of cost, in terms that restricts the market, land, labor opportunities, credit facility. You are basically clustering certain group of people into caste system or a class system based on this religion that they follow, based on the color of the skin that they possess, and so on and so forth. That maybe you are limiting their chances of progress or advancement in their life. That's through a restriction on economic activities. Legalities is a system of property rights that favors only men. Perhaps most of the system in the society are paternalistic, except few, barring few society which is materialistic in nature. So essentially, it is putting the female gender uh, into disadvantageous position, and that is what is the corrupt practice is all about it. Probably these are compounded by the effect of the people outlook in terms of people in power. For example, people in judiciary, people in enforcement or police. Political is a democratic process that deny poor people of political voice. Example, vote buying, where people might be incentivized to cast their vote in favor of certain things. So people actually look for a short-term gain and forego their long time profits altogether, and that is what is putting them into a disadvantageous position. Social is class exploitation or patron client relation, as the case might be. Capacity building context in terms of an outcome, please understand we are all interested in the outcomes, right? This is what we are interested in. We just are not interested in anything else. Now, how does this outcome is been allowed? It is been allowed at the larger scales of institutional context, as the case might be, which might be further enforced or enlarged by the organizational context, and actual advantage or actual impact is based on an or been forced by individuals, and that is what we need to go around it. Remember, the goal is universal, and probably it impacts the institutional organization and the individual in a same framework. Let me quote as far as institutional context are concerned. In institutional context, you might have a broad guidelines in terms of legal framework, informal in terms of norms, customs, tradition, and so on and so forth. Now, coming back to the organizational context where there is the real enforcement that carries upon it is the direction, the plans. We're talking about the programs, service management, internal structures, systems, policies, human resource management, people involved into the process, organization leadership, external relations, resource mobilization, and financial management is what we look forward to. This essentially impacts the individual concern. Who improves on the basic skills probably makes him much more employable or her much more jobs ready. Job specific related skills, leadership skills, management skills, attitude, change in behavior, and probably exposures. Then that what brings in the experiences. NGO capacity framework is all the areas that is critical to the work of NGO and the role for doing a society, for doing development, for upliftment, upgradation of the society or the living standards of the people in essence. Organization capacity is the capability of an organization to achieve what has been planned for, outputs and activities in order to realize the mission then and there. For effective development, NGOs must have adequate capacity in 5 areas, and each must be consistent with the others. This is essentially a non negotiable principle altogether. Let us understand for effective development what are the 5 areas that we are looking into it. First, organizational design. Probably, if you don't understand design, probably the structure of the organization, the system that has been followed or enforced upon, mobilization of resources, maintaining relationship, and the last one is of producing result. These are the 5 things that goes around it. For your understanding, organizational design, systems, mobilization of resources, maintaining of relationships, and producing the result as in the case might be. A broad pictographical representation is in front of you wherein you see what is happening. The result, see the result is what been impacting the society per se. The society has to have a vision, it has to have a vision where it wants to lead, from which position it is, it all about it, the mission, the strategies, the program, the projects. Now these are all nothing but NGO's capacity framework. The NGO has to go around with an organization which are made up of people, systems, structures, and management. Again, when we are talking about this, the working in tandem of system, structure, management, and people, we are basically consuming resources, relationships to see result. The result is again impacting the society. Now that is what how we upgrade our society in the least possible fashion. Now, organizational capacity factor contributing to the capacity are essentially 6 factors. One being people, human resources at the center of it. The structures, the dynamics of the people, the autonomy that the people are enjoying is what we are talking about structure. The system and procedures is what we will be looking into it. Finances, physical facilities, management, and so on and so forth. How do we come across what needs to be done and what will be done? Physical facilities is the number of equipment facility that has been that is coming around. How do we come across with it? Therefore, efforts to the capacity building should not be separated from achieving external change result, and that is what is required as on one basis. Organizational effectiveness. And why are we looking at organizational effectiveness? We are talking about accountability, internal organizational governance to ensure that the resources have been put to the best possible usage. That is what accountability is all about. It. That is what responsibility is all about. It. The focus has to be there. The strategic planning to achieve a significant impact on the society. System to generate that financial resources are responsible. Creativity, human resource management with a motivation, with a team spirit, with a sense of camaraderie, with a sense of belongingness towards the organization. Delivery is all about strategies for management or service delivery, such as advocacy, capacity building, physical projects. Reliability is administrative systems that are reliable, effective, such as documentation and communication. Profile and security must make known to others, networking, build reputation, fund raising, and so on and so forth. Essential ingredient of organizational effectiveness, accountability governance. What are we looking out here is program beneficiaries. Now, program beneficiaries are essentially human beings or the society at large, and this is what we are looking forward to it. How do we go around it? Is accountability in terms of governance, focus in terms of the end objective or strategic plan, trust in terms of financial probity, as in no misappropriation of fund is being done. Creativity is all about human resources, making optimum utilization of resources, having the maximum impact. Delivery is the program management, reliability is office management, profile and security is fundraising, and publicity, as the case might be. Complexity and the range of capacity building activities linked to organization approach to reducing poverty. Now, this is what is I call very important. Reduction of poverty means upgradation in the living standard. So we are talking about humanitarian issues. We are talking about providing these goods and services to each individual, making life a little bit more conducive for the individual in concern. Essentially, if individuals' grievances are addressed, we are doing nothing but at the whole, a community development has been taken care of. That means building of capacity of the local indigenous people, local indigenous organization. What are indigenous people? Essentially, the natives of the land, the son of the soil, the daughters of the soil are the indigenous people we are talking around it. Sustainable system. Essentially, if one there's a community development, we should ensure that the community goes on the higher run and it doesn't fall back. This should not happen. So we have to have a sustainable system. That means the capacity building, if it has taken place at all, should not be let down. The capacity should be made strengthened enough. Build capacity of the local, regional, and national system. Or essentially, what am I trying is we are looking at a transformational of the structures of the society, thereby creating new structures, new transform system with all. Now let us come with the humanitarian service one at a time. Can we discuss those 4 points that we have been talking around it? Capacity building is based on improving NGOs communication, logistics for effective delivery of appropriate goods and services as the case might be, and that is what we are looking forward to. So capacity building strategy is based on improving the NGO's communication, logistic for effective delivery and appropriates of goods and services. Talking about community development is nothing but focus on strengthening of the performance of local organization in relation to the mission, in relation to the vision, context, resources, availability, viability, as the case might be. We are just in the process of empowering the community to take their own decision, to ensure that the decision they are taking is in full light of knowledge that must be made available to them. Sustainable development is all about focusing on networking with the government and other organizations to develop a system to sustain local, regional, and national development. Integrated system work on interrelated the efforts of multiple development sectors. For example, environment, microfinance, agriculture, education, you name it, and this is what sustainable system is all about. It multiple development sectors in terms of microfinance, in terms of agriculture, education. These are broadly societal goals that goes around it. If the society is educated, nothing can go wrong with it. If the society is well financed, probably people would be enriched or engrossed in economic activities. If there is an agriculture is the basics of our society. Essentially, if all of us have to have our food, water, drinks, and whatever it is for a sustainable and probably for livable life. And that is what capacity building focuses on, the sustainable system. Talking about the structural system, if you look at the pic, we are focusing on strategies as far as networking is concerned, ensuring that whatever processes have been in places are intact. That means we are trying to create new ways of organizing, new ways of thinking, economic, social, and political relationship, as the case might be. Skill areas of NGO capacity building. Now, what are the skill areas? There are many. Allow me to discuss few things. One is strategic planning. Can we plan everything? Let's understand a lifespan of a man is approximately, a human being is approximately 80, 90 years old, right? But the society which he or she creates is going to be there for centuries and beyond. So can we think about planning which is beyond 2, 3, 4 generations, so that it benefits every one of us? Project proposal writing is where we need to understand the funding areas. We need to give the milestone in terms of enacting the project growth, passage of time, project management, who is going to be responsible for what kind of things, NGO accountability and governance, so that there are no misappropriation of funds, so there are no anomalies in terms of the processes, there are no corruption, no nepotism, governance, transparency has been maintained, NGO leadership, people, somebody has to be there at the helm of the affairs, financial management. Yes, money that flows in, money that goes out, where it is flowing in and from where it is going out needs to be monitored. Managing people, office administration, and fundraising is basically to be taken into consideration in all earnest. So, what do we looking into it? Capacity development for an organization should look at least at three levels. Now, this is what we need to understand. These three levels is very important. Building on capacity, three levels are all about institution, organization, and individual. Building on capacity relationship, mobilization of resources is vital and of paramount importance to a NGO capacity. And last but not the least one is building capacity for NGO must be linked to organizational effectiveness, as it benefits the organization in the longest of the run. And with this, I come to an end of this presentation. I'm sure everybody understood capacity building for an NGO and why it should be done and how does it help the organization in the long run, the institutional development in the long run, and obviously the community where the individual resides, because there is an upgradation in their living standards. With these words, I sign off from this video. Thank you very much.